Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Friday, May 26th. It is the end of the week, and we've got a nice 3-day weekend ahead of us. So great time to kind of go over some of the price action from this week. As always, I like to recap the week's performance, let you know where the momentum was, just in case you were out or you didn't kind of catch all of it. We'll do a nice recap. It's also really helpful, in my opinion, to kind of after the week is done, and if you are in front of the screens, look at the raw numbers to see where that strength was, and as well as both the really nice relative strength as well as the weakness, so that you can kind of determine what areas that you don't want to be in as well. So before we get into that, the risk disclaimer: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer right there. Also, a big thank you to all the service members out there. It is Memorial Day on Monday, so I just wanted to say a quick thank you, and look forward to celebrating on Monday. So let's get into, of course, the themes of the day. I didn't even change the top line here: semis and tech. Now, there were some other areas too, and I'll go into a couple of those areas, or I'll also recap you on a couple of my trades as well. But look at the cues. I mean, just right from the start today, they were at a very really fast pace. Right, here's the cues, or if you want to look at NASDAQ futures. But I mean, right from the start of the day, I mean, there was no hesitation here. Right from the open, there wasn't even that much of a price action, in the pre-market session. But once we hit 9:30, I mean, it was just off to the races. I mean, there wasn't one major, red bar here, or even a move back or pause till about 11 o'clock. So it was basically just straight up. And then it was just a continuation, which sometimes you see this when the buyers are just really in control and people want to do some buying. So you had this little hesitation around 11:20, but I mean, we finished very close to the highs of the day. So that's just, you can come up with your own adjectives for that type of price action. But I would say just overall impressive. S&P was a little bit different looking, right? Again, that still went up, but it's the Qs right now that are the leader and really have the pace. So let's start with the S&P chart, and then we'll go through a number of things, but I wanted to start with that. And we're back to like this, the top of the broadening formation. That worked pretty good, in terms of signaling where we had some short-term resistance. Does that mean that we pause here again or go up a little bit further? It could. And I think that you just want to remain on your toes. Here's where we are in terms of the 1-hour chart. We're basically back to where we, full round trip. And the value areas gave you an excellent level to buy the dip. We went over this earlier in the week, but pretty nice level, this 4120 level in S&P futures to trade off of. Let's talk about those cues for a minute. But you could see just different than the S&P, right? A little bit of a more shallow pullback, right? We didn't go down to all the way down to the bottom of value. We kind of went to the point of control, where the most volume occurred in the previous period of last week. We ended up closing, I think this was on Wednesday, right back at the top of value. And then obviously that there was, some really nice continuation. This leaves us, a little bit overbought, right? We got to remember, just a few days back, and maybe it was a week ago at this point, but we did get to about a 72 RSI in the Qs. And where my eyes are going is down here on the bottom of the screen. We got pretty overbought, right? And we worked off those overbought levels. Dip got bought, and we're back above here. Here's what the weekly bar looks like. We're managing to, one of my thoughts very earlier in the week was whether we were going to hold above this 332 level, which is a very significant level. That's the top of value. Sorry, I have a new screen, so bear with me. I did a little bit of an overhaul of my computer systems and monitors and so forth. So bear with me a little bit, but I mean, that looks pretty darn good when you look at it. And it's important to zoom out, right? And then small caps, we know that these are just this is just struggling comparatively to the other indices. It did get back to up 1% for the year, but again, this is not where the momentum is. So we talk a lot about, and I know other people are saying this too, because it makes total sense, the haves and the have-nots. Will we get some type of reversion? Eventually it could happen, but I wouldn't force the issue. You know, again, I'm not giving advice or anything, but that's how in my trading, I do look for momentum, and I do look for trends, and we don't have either one of those right now in IWM except for sideways. And I would much rather be, you know, wait for this to break above the 200-day moving average, and kind of go from there. So I'm not going to spend any more time on the small caps because there's a lot more interesting things going on. The only other thing that I'll say in regard to the small caps, which is the QQEW, which is not exactly small caps, but the small caps do get, or the smaller names market cap wise do get the same representation as the larger names. It's an equally weighted ETF. This is starting to finally participate, right? For a while, it was the big, you know, the bigger names that were doing the heavy lifting, but this kind of shows you that there is more participation. And the bottom left of your screen, you could see that the breadth was very strong today, which is, we haven't seen too much of that, right? That has been the big complaint in the markets, that that there just hasn't been very good participation, and I agree, but that doesn't mean that things aren't going to change. And you know, we do have that difference between the NYSE McClellan Summation Index and the Nasdaq McClellan Summation Index. The Nasdaq is much stronger. So I'm not going to bring that chart up now either, because I want to run through some more things, and I want to talk about more of the performance for the week. But I will do that for members in the weekend video. By the way, just a quick note on that. And that note is, if you want to be a member of Tribeca Trade Group, where do you go? Well, you could go to my Twitter handle, right? You could click on my profile, and you can go right here to services. That will take you to the Tribeca Trade Group, and actually here, but here's the homepage. And this is where you can find out just about what we do on a day-to-day basis. I will tell you very quickly, right? You will get a lot of content from us, like a huge amount of content. Sometimes I get complaints sometimes that the content is too much, but you get a lot for your money. And of course, you could tone it down in terms of what you're doing. You know, we do a pre-market session, which starts every day at 9:10 in the morning. The goal of the pre-market session is to go through all the big macro moves, the commodities, you know, what the currencies are doing, what basically we need to watch out for the day. You know, I also summarize the economics, and then we do go over some charts and what I'm looking at for the day, what some of the themes that I think are at play. And then I do a whole big midday note where I give you what my open positions are doing. I also let you know how my watch list is performing, right? And I also give you the themes of the day and some of the other movers that are not on my watch list. And then I give you a couple charts that I'm watching. And I'll tell you, like, those ideas have worked really well. Now, of course, there's momentum in this market, but that's what I capitalize on. All right. So I'll talk about a couple of those things in just a second, but I wanted just to further recap the performance. And, you know, I've talked a lot about, you know, this block that I have here on my spreadsheet, talking about like what's been performing. And it is very interesting when you look at the 5-day performance, and this should be in green at this point. I needed to change that particular one, but the growth was up almost 2% for the week. For the month, I mean, look at the performance, right? 5.4% for growth and negative 3.4% for value. So it has been that slim participation. And, you know, I think that also it helps to have that guidance to know, hey, these areas just haven't been there. You know, I've talked about in the room sometimes about, hey, let's look at this area or let's look at that area in terms of like, let's look to see what the energy names are doing. Are they a buy right now? Right. And we've talked about that a couple of times. We've talked about how some of these areas of the market have been too difficult, right? If it's too difficult, don't do it, in my opinion. right? Trade the easy setup. Don't trade the hard setup, right? So Qs, right? Up 8% at this point for the month. That brings the Qs up to 30% for the year. Just amazing when you look at the difference between the Qs and the small caps, which are just up 1%, and SPY that's somewhere in the middle of that, up about 10% now. Year to date. I mean, that's incredible performance given the macro environment and macro landscape. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but I just wanted to recap a couple other things. But yes, the semis, which were up 10% for the week, were up another 4.9% today. Also, there was a couple other areas that were participating today. You had consumer discretionary did do pretty well. XLY was up 2.3%. Keep in mind, big weight of Tesla and Amazon in that ETF, but nice performance. And cyber names were up 2.6%, which helped up my CrowdStrike long, which I sent out that trade idea a couple days, just established that trade 2 days ago. So nice there. Let's recap the week's performance as well. I've already talked about a couple things here, but interesting. The Qs up 3.5%. That's exactly the same as last week, up 3.5% as well. Bonds actually were just down just a touch. They did come back today, right? That's been one of my concerns, is that interest rates have been going higher. Notice that we took out this lower VPOC here, right? And we did get a little bit of a bounce. Now, we didn't take back we haven't changed the trend. I used the 5-period moving average for whenever we have a big trend to the downside or to the upside, right? It doesn't, I really pay attention to when price gets above there. So we do have a level, right? That's important to watch, which is this red line. We took that out and we're trying to bounce. Further confirmation would be a move above that 5-day moving average. All right, very interesting there indeed that interest rates have been moving higher, but has not really spilled over to affect those growth names. So semis by far biggest group, up 10.5%. Nvidia, and then MRVL was up I think like 30% or something like that today. I mean, just astounding, so basically like back to back. Marvell was up 32%. Notice where it stopped, right at that version point of control, the second one, right? So an area of just amazing that it got all the way up there, right? Going back to this value area and this version point of control, pretty amazing at that. Remember, I'm not drawing these lines in, they're all automatic, like this one up here and like this one in here too. All right, they're based on volume at price, and they're based on an extension of the market profile. It's an indicator that we have put together. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to my pinned tweet this time and you can click on learn more and you can go right there. But just all kinds of, this ACLS really strong, just to give you a sense of like, it wasn't just, I'm not even bringing up NVIDIA. I'm just showing you a couple other areas. Look at sticking with the A's and semis. I mean, Broadcom, right? This was a note I sent out in a trade that I was in. Now, I didn't capture this last leg of the move. I do have it in the TTG trend portfolio though, however, right, which is a portfolio that is designed for a little bit more longer term holding. But we captured this whole move here in Broadcom. I mean, just phenomenal, up 11.5%. And again, it really, so I'm going to insert a couple things that I get a lot of questions from members about this particular environment that we're trading in. One of which I get repeat questions about, hey, is it really not worth it to go after breakouts? Is it better to trade names into support and then try to scalp those names? Well, I think, what we've seen this week gives you some evidence that yes, breakouts, the risk reward, is really where you can make a lot of money. Trading is when breakouts go the right way. Now, of course, when you're in a bear market and what we experienced for most of last year, breakouts they're going to be few and far between, right? They're going to get rejected a lot of the times. But this gives you a sense why you trade a breakout, right? There should be no question about this, right? are you looking to trade just the range back into support and then get out of it for a few bucks? That's what you do in a bear market, right? Or in a more difficult environment. But you're not going to make the money that you are versus, in a breakout. Like Lam Research was another one too that we caught, right? This thing was going sideways for a long time, right? And look at the power of the breakout, right? It can be very exciting. Rambus, just to kind of throw out a couple other names. I mean, it's just unbelievable to see some of these moves like this. So one of the questions that I got today, SMCI, from basically the breakout of 112 to 200. What a phenomenal stock this thing has been, right? This is also in the TTG trend portfolio. Not at a big weight, by the way. So another question that I get quite a bit is whether, or sorry, it's a more recent question, and I was on Bloomberg TV and I got asked this question as well. What do you do with some of these areas, like the whole AI movement, right? So these moves have been very, very fast. And if you miss some of them, like I didn't catch every single one of these. Did we catch a lot of them? Yes, we did catch a lot of them. But you're not going to be able to catch every one of these. I would go back to what environment we're in right now, right? It is still a very intensive macro environment where they're still raising interest rates. And if you look at the do I have, sorry, that's the wrong screen. Are they going to be raising interest rates again? Well, today we did get some economic data that showed that inflation is still hanging around. The PCE deflator month over month came up 0.4, up positive 0.4%. That was above expectations of 0.3, right? And the probability of an interest rate hike jumped, right, for the month of June, just, in a couple of weeks. It's now 70% chance that they're going to be raising interest rates by another 25 basis points. So the moral here is that you may get chances to buy this AI theme and pullbacks. So the way that I kind of do this, and we talked about NVIDIA, when it gapped up here. And you have to be patient a little bit. One of the things that we did, or excuse me, what I did was yesterday morning when this dip happened, right? I bought a little bit, right? I know we're not going to get a dip all the way back into here, right? It's just not going to happen. Or it's not. I shouldn't say it's not going to happen. It's not probable, right? Everything's about probabilities in trading. But I thought that, hey, somebody was taking profits in here. That's quite normal after that type of a move. Let's see if buyers come back in. Right. So this is my chance to kind of scoop up the trade, and you can go back and, you could see that, this is where, again, I bought a little bit. Right. Didn't buy a lot, but, was able to kind of, once you're able to kind of get into the trade, right, then you can take some profits. Right? If it pulls back a little bit, you could add some of that back, because I think that this theme is going to stay. Right. And I think that this is going to be a strong name. Now it could consolidate for a while. So that's important, right? Getting into that repetition of, hey, let me get in, to this spot. Let me have put a trailing stop on, or put a stop on, so where the trade's not going to work, because not everything is certain, right? So you need to have a backup plan before you enter the trade. I wanted to talk a little bit about Tesla, right? Tesla finally got going today. This was a nice winner in the trading room today, and it still has work to do, right? It's got to get through its 200-day moving average, right? I discussed this a little bit on Bloomberg TV, but I think this is a must watch here, right? If it gets going, right? They're doing a lot of positive things. They announced that they have this supercharging station, right? That they're going to allow Ford to use, right? What great advertising for a company, right? That, hey, yeah, you could use our chargers, right? They're the innovator. Right. And, again, I would love to see another catalyst come out from them. And maybe that's also something that will get the stock going. If we see some type of new product, something more, in the AI area. But I think that this is good risk to reward. Even better, like for confirmation purposes, it needs to get above the 200-day moving average. So, how do I deal with something that's not triggering perfectly for me? I take targets. I even said, like, this is going to be a day trade for me. Now, I didn't know it was going to go as far as it did today, but we also talked about an option trade too. But for now, hold a little bit, right? And, look to kind of add and look for that confirmation, right? Netflix, and it was, so it wasn't just, the semis. Like Netflix gave a really nice push back here into the 5-day moving average, and really nice move. Amazon was something that we talked about a few times this week, right? Where again, like it's just similarly, a little bit of digestion, right? And putting an alert on a name at an important level goes so far, right? We talked about this 117 level, right? We hit there several times this week, once, twice, 3, and then the 4th time it went. Okay. So again, sometimes that's going to happen, right? So again, you can't be afraid of the breakout. You just want to familiarize you want to familiarize, I can't say it, yeah, with understanding that it may take a couple times before it actually goes. That's called patience, right? You have to have some patience in trading, right? And if you try this, if you tried it here and it didn't work, right? The other thing to do to help is don't put on a big position, right? Don't have such high expectations, right? Be reasonable with this market. Okay. So just a couple things that I wanted to share. But if you go back and if you look, I won't recap like all of our week, but Salesforce was I mean, this was just something that I put out on Substack, and I put out two setups, Crowd and Salesforce. Both worked beautifully. I mean, that was just a day ago, right? And nice extension here, right? It helped, workday results helped, right? So you got I think you got a little bit of pin action from the move in workday, which was up another stock, right? Not in the semi group, by the way. But in the software group, up 10% for the day. Really impressive. Arista Networks, just thinking out loud here a little bit, but what a monster move for Arista Networks, up 9%. No news on the stock at all, just really impressive. Adobe also was another one. These we covered, I believe, in one of my videos yesterday, right? Look at the continuation in Adobe, up 6% today. I mentioned CrowdStrike was a trade that I got into, watching what Palo Alto did. Not quite as much as up 6%, but up 3%. Nice follow through. And I'll look to hold that into the earnings report just a little bit further. We'll do that. Oracle was a smashing trade as well. Right, really nice. And I actually sold out of my exposure, which I'm going to draw the video to a close at this point, because I don't want to keep any more for your weekend. But again, there was the haves and there was the have-nots. A lot of things did not do well this week. Healthcare, right? Utilities. So more of your lower volatility areas of the market, more of your defensives. Now, you can make an argument that this is pretty good to see all of those kind of hiding places that people have been, such as the consumer staples, right? That's being unwound for more aggressive things. So overall, like the market dynamics, you have to say are pretty decent, to say that if the areas that are going down are some of the most crowded areas that we've seen over the last 6 months, right? Those the consumer staples, the healthcare, the utilities, things of that nature. All right. And then just finally, so how did I end the week? You have to be understand that when the market's ripping like this, you've got to take profits and things. And you could see I unwound some Apple. I unwound, I got out of Netflix. I got out of Salesforce today, right? Even though I want to hold Salesforce a little bit longer, it'll be there for me on Tuesday when the markets reopen, right? Take the profits. Because again, we still have a difficult macro landscape. This is not the environment that we were in a couple of years ago, where the Fed was expanding the balance sheet, right? And they were inserting liquidity. So you've got to be pretty smart with trading, in my opinion, right? All these names will be there for us next week. All right, guys, that is it. Have a great weekend, and make sure that you subscribe to the video, as well as I hope to see you in the trading room. And of course, in the trading room, you could always ask me questions throughout the trading session. We do have a Q&A channel too, where I post charts and so forth, and try to help out traders. Have a great weekend, everybody.